When you first hear the word homeless in Greenville, what comes to your mind?
I would say the faces of the folks that I know that are within the experience of homelessness, the folks that we've served who have remained in that experience, and then, the victories that we've seen for folks who have exited that experience and moved on to a life that they worked for and with dignity have earned. And so when I think of, or when I hear the word homeless, I think of a situation, not a person. And it is within the experience of homelessness where you find the stories. And it is where we push our programs and our love towards folks who have been pushed away and been made to feel less than lovable by family, friends, experiences, injustice, inequities. And we try to insert ourselves into those spaces where they have pain from their story. And so when I hear, oh, I saw a homeless person, I quickly will say, you saw a person who's experiencing homelessness. And it allows there to be a human being in the conversation. It acknowledges that this is a person first, and then they are within this experience. Because at the Salvation Army, if we only ever give folks the experience of homelessness, that's all they're ever going to expect. And so we try to give them an experience of hopefulness, of joy, of laughter, of calm, of accountability. All of those experiences are important to graduate from homelessness into being housed.
When you first interact with someone, and we'll touch on services you offer in a minute, can you just tell us about some of where they are? And sometimes you always hear, well, and this is what I've heard directly, they won't get out of that, they won't get out of this. What are most of them when they come to you looking for?
So as far as shelter is concerned, the folks that come to us come from every imaginable walk of life. We have people who have higher educations than I do, folks who had one medical condition that sent everything into a tailspin. We have folks who are actively fleeing domestic violence with their small children. We have young mothers. We have, grieving widows, folks who had one single experience that took place that landed them in an experience that I myself cannot imagine, but I can illustrate. And when they come to us, they're first looking for, somewhere to just take a breath. When you live on edge and your whole existence is to survive, when we take away that fear by being present, by simply saying their name back to them, it's the smallest things that make the biggest difference often. And we ask them to tell their story to us at their speed. Tell us the parts you want to share with us now, and then we will be here to support you as you walk towards the parts that you don't want to talk about yet. And we start working with them from the bottom up. The overwhelming majority of the folks that we serve in our shelter programs are employed. They're just underemployed. They may be full-time, but they don't make a livable wage. And the other folks that we serve and support, they are on a fixed income that will never get them to the affordability AMI that our affordable housing is based on here. And we work with them in their story. Every program participant is worked with how they need to be. We don't, cookie cutter the assistance, nor do we prescribe the next step. We encourage them and give them the tools necessary to start writing the next chapter, while acknowledging that the first time might not be the last time. And we stay the course, which is often a long and lonely road. But we have seen the value in loving people first. And so that is our charge, I tell my staff constantly, I want you to love them and then see what happens.
Do you guys go out where they are? Like, I drive down Academy every day where Project hosts, and I see, and I don't necessarily know specifically, what their scenario is, but is it more they come to you, or do you go to them? Or
So a little bit of both. So we go on outreach with a group of other providers. We don't go out on solo, searches for folks. And we check in on folks that we know are still living rough, as we refer to it. And we just check in with them. We don't bring backpacks full of socks and t-shirts and all these things to assist them in living outside. Rather, what we do is we start the relationship with them. Homelessness is an incredibly lonely experience. It is the absence of belonging and the exclusion from community. And so when you see a group of people experiencing homelessness, they've made community after being pushed out of ours. And, you'll see people, if you're going down the Swamp Rabbit Trail, you'll see someone, scurrying off into the woods. They shouldn't have to do that in a community as beautiful as this one. And so we go to them and we give them a face to a name. And we tell them of our services. We're not going to load people up in a van and say, okay, time to come inside. You're bothering X business, or this, group of folks felt uncomfortable because you're breathing. Rather, we tell them, hey, friend, listen, we have these sorts of services. Do you think that you could benefit from them? And we give them the first choice. And then we come back, and oftentimes their camp is gone, and we hope to see them again. So we do go to them. And we also have folks come to us in large quantities. I think it is currently this week, we've had 75 requests for shelter in the men's shelter, and we've only had 4 beds open up. So the need is higher than the help at this point. And it's because we have a clogged pipe, right? If you think of a highway system, I love this analogy. It makes a lot of sense. Highways and housing are very, very similar. LA has 8-lane wide highways in both directions, and it is a gigantic parking lot, right? Imagine that to be shelter. Houston has 4-lane highways and a whole bunch of ways off. They've developed side roads, get you to the same place. You just don't have to go on the same road. It dismantled the congestion by giving options otherwise, right? Same exact thing with housing. If we do not have exits from shelter, we can't have new folks come in. So then those folks are stuck outside. They are the ones down on Main Street. They are the ones outside of the Hyatt. They are asking you for money because what else are they going to do? You can't get a job if you don't have an address. You can't get an address if you don't have a job. And you can't get to a job if you don't have a car. The good paying jobs are not on public transportation routes. And often our folks, they don't see the benefit. The cost of the job is too high for the benefit received by it. We have so many folks who are working so hard just to have what we all don't even think about not having. I go home every day to my family and my children in a home that I chose and that I work for, of course. And then I think of and I imagine the kids that are the exact same age as my daughters who are in the shelter on our campus. And I see them as just as worthy of a place that's theirs as my children. Their story is different, but their destination doesn't have to be. And so we try to create space for equity and also for the approach. Our folks are often never looked at in the eyes. They're looked away from. And I always encourage folks from the community to don't assume the worst of someone you've yet to meet. A lot of times they will ask you for money. Don't give it to them. I mean, it's quite simple. You can just say, I'm sorry, I don't give money on the streets. Give them a Gatorade if they stop you at a red light. Keep a 6-pack of water in your car. There's other options in service if your heart feels called to do something. But $5, $10 is not going to fix their situation. It's just going to dig their heels down further into it.
Yeah, I noticed a couple times recently, if you want to touch on this, just this past year is when I noticed people actually sleeping on Main Street. Normally I didn't see that before. And also, like, just this past week as a personal experience, or 3 weeks ago, some guy literally got upset at me because I said, we won't give you money. Where do you want to go eat? Do you want to go sell these steamers? Between those two situations, what do you noticing in that in general, and then we'll go to more about if you could then summarize like your day to day, what
Okay.
your life is like.
So I make my husband uncomfortable when we're downtown with our kids, and a friend will come up to us and say, hey, I need $5 to get X, Y, and Z, right? What he thinks I'm going to say yes to. And I look at them and I say, hey friend, listen, we don't give money on the streets, but it is this o'clock and I know that this, and this are happening at these places. Do you want me to help you find how to get there? And they get upset, of course, because they just wanted the $5. They didn't want your explanation, right? Often we see with friends like that, they are in the throes of a significant mental health situation where their presence in reality is very different than ours. And I like to give a lot of credit to that. When you're delusional or you hear voices or you haven't slept in days, you're hungry, but the craving is higher for something else, not food. When you're offered the solution, all you see is more problems. And so in that moment, if someone is upset, that's okay. They are allowed to feel disappointed in your answer. They asked the question, your answer didn't meet their expectation. And just say, friend, these services are here. I'm still not going to give you money, but we're going to go and walk away. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. I didn't catch your name. What's your name? And you acknowledge their humanity in just that moment. It's called know with hope. It's a simple yet uncomfortable thing to do, is to tell someone that you are not going to honor their request for you to give them money, to take them somewhere. All of those things are just probably a real good non-starter, I would say. But you acknowledge that you see them. A lot of our folks feel that they've been required to become invisible. And they are very visible now. And a lot of that has to do with the increase in cost of housing, the decrease in exits from shelter programs, the increase in jobs leaving the area, restaurants closing, transit. There's all sorts of catalytic reasons this is still happening the way that it is. But the Greenville that I'm from, born and raised here in Greenville, I remember when walking past the Peace Center was just not a good call, right? We have expanded and we have built new horizons. We really have. And, just sitting here in the middle of a park where I used to come out on outreach and visit encampments here, those folks had to go somewhere. And so those are the friends we see in places that we don't want them. Exposure to something creates a tolerance in you, right? It's just like sunshine. You get that good sunburn of the summer, right? That first one. You're not going to get burned again. But then the next time you put on more sunscreen and you get a little less burned. And then the next time, a little less, because you've built a tolerance to it. You've exposed your skin to it and now you have a tolerance. What the past 5 to 10 years has shown is that exposure to the issue has revealed Greenville's intolerance. And that is the part that I don't identify as a Greenvillian, as a native. I've been here since the day I was born, at Greenville Memorial Hospital even. I grew up going to city schools. I graduated from Greenville High School. I'm raising my family here, and I have no plan to leave. But all of us in this industry, we have every plan to change it. I was diagnosed very suddenly with multiple sclerosis in October of 2020. I got very, very sick very fast. I was in the hospital. When I left the hospital, I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk. I couldn't take care of myself. I, had to be bathed and fed because the injury to my brain was severe. And a few weeks went by and I was, excited to go back to work, slower than normal. But I had to go on campus to reconnect my computer to the server. One of those silly organizational things. And the folks that we serve and that live with us, they know my car. I wasn't driving, I was the passenger. And we pulled up to park and I got out of the car and I saw this large group of men coming from our men's shelter. Service providers will understand that when you see a big group of folks that you haven't seen in a while and they're all coming towards you when you drive in, there's probably a problem that you're about to learn about. Instead, I hear a very familiar voice, Miss Lauren, Miss Lauren. And I turned around ever so slowly, with the walker. And it was a longtime friend of ours that we've served many times for many reasons. And he said, "We heard you were sick, Miss Lauren." And I said, "Yeah, man, they got me good this time." And he said, "We were worried about you. We really were worried about you." And I said, "Oh, it's okay, man. God'll do what he needs to do when he needs to do it." And he said, "Well, we wanted to pray over you, Miss Lauren." So about 25 men who have no reason to pray for me other than faith came around me, masks, and they all touched each other's shoulders and made this big circle around me. We do popcorn prayer. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's where if you feel a prayer, you say it. And you don't interrupt each other. You wait and then you go, and it's very organic, and it speaks to the spirit of a religious experience. And so they start popcorn praying, and you have your typical, Lord, please heal her, all these things. And it gets to this guy that I don't know his name. I am not supposed to. Even now, I have no idea who he was. I never saw his face. All I heard was his voice. And he said, "God, my prayer for Miss Lauren is that you heal the things that need to be healed, and you keep broken what you broke on purpose." And I have never been the same since that happened. That people who lay awake at night staring up at the bed above them or the ceiling, praying for what I forget to be grateful for, and to know that those folks who don't have what I have, who wish for it and pray and work for it, were worried about me. That is the greatest gift this job has ever given to me, is the realization that I see them as the same as I am, and they see me that way too. And that's all based on a relationship. And I am so grateful for that, to know that at the end of all of it, I will not be rich in the world's terms, but my heart has been forever created for this job, for our folks, for the purpose that sometimes I don't understand, but to know that I will never know who that man was, never saw his face, and no one can remember his name. It is a gift that I am still working on deserving.
Is there an end to this, or how does that look like in the community, or how do you look at that? I think we sort of touched on that a little.
Yeah, so I think that we are not going to build our way out of this, right? We are not going to shoot up a bunch of, buildings to concentrate poverty. We've seen the effects of that. We have to serve each person. Greenville as a community, we have to stand in the dirt that we are spinning our tires in as a collective, where a house used to sit. That's where we're at right now. We are in the reckoning phase. And it's okay to have not done it perfect, right? Growth and change, they're beautiful, and they are not the enemy to what we do. We love what Greenville has become. We benefit from what Greenville has become. What we have to do as a community is recognize the what and the who. What are we is from an exterior vantage point. Who are we is within every single one of us. If we are unity, let us be that. If we are collectives for good, let us be that. I have faith in this community more than most people would ever understand, and I've been given every single reason not to. And I still believe we are greater than this. And the folks that we look away from ever so quickly are more than that moment. It is an experience. It is not the person. See the person first. And if you feel called by this, come and see us. Come and change your own expectation a bit. Create tolerance in the place of intolerance. And it's based completely in exposure. We might give you a little sunburn at first, but eventually over time, you will grow to love these folks in the same way that we all do as people. We are all called to this, every single one of us. Nobody, if you're not called to this, real quick. And then you're not here anymore, and that's okay too. But it is not, it is both our joy and our burden. It is our neighbors who have become our friends, and we have become their family.
Are your kids more involved today because of you, like you said when you were young?
Absolutely. They come to campus, and my youngest daughter will very quickly correct anyone who says, "Oh, I saw a homeless guy." And she'll say, "Actually, that's a person experiencing homelessness." Because they hear it, and it has become their internal vernacular. Because we are all parents of young children. We are responsible for educating our children on sameness and difference, and then bringing those two things together. I tell my children before they go to school, there are kids in your school that slept in a car last night. Be patient with people who seem impatient. So the same thing to the larger Greenville community. Be patient with people who seem impatient. You haven't a clue what they just went through. And my kids, they come to our campus. We did an Easter egg hunt where they hid all the Easter eggs for the men's shelter and then for the women and children's shelter. They do not see themselves as better than the children that we serve. My husband and I, we are creating tomorrow's leader in our own family by being today's. And it's critical for Greenville to be okay with some little part of us not being perfect. It is the gifts of our imperfections. It is abandoned mills that are now beautiful, functioning, incredible pieces to our local economy. It is water towers that have become iconic to Greenville. It is mill villages where people are being educated on how we got here. Our imperfections are gifts. They aren't life sentences where you'll never redeem yourself. They are to be learned from, taught, and then not done again. And I think Greenville is at a crossroads of that. And I couldn't be more encouraged by who we were, who we are, and who we will be.
You sit down with city leaders a lot, county leaders. You said you were at county council last night at the meeting. Just tell us a little about that in your world.
Yeah, so we do a lot of sort of that. A lot of my job is advocating on behalf of the folks that we serve and the programs that we both are operating and the ones we need to operate. And so, when county or city officials see me, it's first name basis, and that is a critical piece of how we move forward, is recognizing the necessity of all of us. Is that, yes, we do need elected officials. We do need service providers, because we don't want to have this experience of inequity and poverty to be never ending. I said last night, actually, at county council, that people often think that poverty is a choice. Poverty is the absence of choices. I can tell you this, there is not a single person I have ever served that would have woken up and chosen that. And that is the drive for me, is to create choices, to create knowledge in folks who just don't know. You got to go somewhere to grow somewhere. And that's what we're trying to do in both our relationships with city and county government, our relationships with the numerous congregations in Greenville, our relationships with any person that wants to hear our story. We are willing to show it to you because we think it's important for you to know it too. But obviously, I love what I do, and it is one of the honors of my life to get to do it.
Do you ever take a break? Is it 24/7 for you, or thoughts
well,
about that?
I like to joke with my, our area commander. I remind him that I'm burnout proof, because I've had the unique experience of going to bed and tomorrow not actually being promised. And so when it's too much, I'm probably going to push through to the next part, because too much is never too much for me. But at the same time, taking a break for me is going down to the men's shelter and sitting in a chair and talking to one of our friends. It isn't, I'm not a beach person, thank goodness. but it is reminding folks that we are on the same journey. We're just on different paths, right? And, you know, for me, it is having the wonderful support of my colleagues at the Salvation Army, having incredible relationships with partner agencies, the support, the push, being held accountable. It's critical. We as the service providers receive what we give from one another. And Greenville is not only generous, but it is a collaborative and creative community. And thank goodness, otherwise we would have been down a bad road. But we can make something out of nothing. But like I said before, nothing feels like it's running out a little bit.
When you say running out, is that like maybe explain that level of, is it you don't know what's next, or you're seeing a trend of less really trying to get to the deep concern, or what does that mean to you, or what would it mean to the public to say running out? Yeah.
So running out of nothing, right? How do you run out of nothing?
Yeah.
It is that everybody is feeling the squeeze of everything else, from folks who used to give to us to folks who haven't yet given. The nothingness is normally left to the things that are left over, right? So we are running out of toiletries. We're also running out of people who want to apply for jobs because they don't pay enough, or the hours aren't good enough, or another place pays more. We're running out of the depth of gifts, right? And I understand why. I mean, everybody's dollar just got a whole lot smaller at the same exact time as the need of this community just got a lot bigger. And so we need to rally the troops. We got to, you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you don't have boots. And we would love to sell your boots. Every little bit counts. And at the Salvation Army, I'm sure everyone recognizes the bells around Christmas with the kettles and putting money in the kettles. And for us, need actually knows no season. The Christmas season is just one little part of the overall, operation of what we do and how we do it. And so when the nothing feels like it's running out is when we do calls to action. Give of yourself. There are people who need you to let go of the quarter, to write the check, to show up and serve, to go through your sweaters, to be who you would want to find on your worst day, of your worst week, in your worst moment. Be that person. It's going to be scary, but when you give of yourself,